Hello and welcome to Recharge Wrestling. We are here to plug you into the world of professional wrestling. And I'm Keeney and I'm joined this week by Fisher.
Hello, guys.
And this week we're going to run through the week in WWE TV, Raw and SmackDown. No major news to bring you this week. So we'll just kick straight off with SmackDown as we build up to Backlash. What was your kind of key takeaway from SmackDown this week?
I mean, it was quite a quiet week in terms of stuff that happened, but there was some major developments again with Bloodline stuff. Announcement for a tag title rematch in a couple of weeks between the Usos and Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens. And then that led to Raw as well, with a 6-man tag being made official for Backlash. They were involved in the opening segment, which led to just a big brawl. And my thoughts on this really are more to do with the tag title match itself. Obviously, I think the match at Backlash will be really good. But I've got two thoughts about this feud at the moment. First of all is, do you think... So two questions, really. Do you think this feud has kind of simmered down a bit now after WrestleMania? Because it was so hot going into Mania. And now it's kind of like... They've added Riddle in, and it feels not out of place, but a little bit out of place. And is it going a bit too much? And secondly, do you think the Usos will win the titles back? Because there's a lot of fans thinking that they will, because Night of Champions is in Saudi Arabia, and Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens don't work there in those shows. And if they're going to have all the titles on the shows, then they won't defend them. Yeah, but they could easily just not have the titles on the show. So I don't know. But that's a theory. It's just a theory at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, I think the feud has definitely simmered down since Mania. I think I actually quite like the addition of Riddle, honestly, because I like the kind of throwback to Solo being the one that injured Riddle, and it makes complete sense.
It makes sense. It's just obviously the storyline has been so intense between the other four guys. He's just kind of, he doesn't fit that well with Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens. That's my issue more than anything. He fits in. He's got beef with the Bloodline. It's more the fact that, I mean, they're doing these little things where Kevin isn't sure about Riddle and all that kind of stuff. But
I quite enjoyed him on Raw. I did a little backstage to free of them.
Yeah, it's all right, but it feels a bit more down the comedy route again. That's all in a very serious.
I know what you mean. This has been like, a blood feud for the best part of a year, and then Riddle on his scooter does feel a bit out of place, I guess. But I think
in a way,
the thing is, it's difficult. Yeah, the culmination was at Mania. This happens a lot when they try and continue feuds after Mania. Is you have like the big blow off at Mania, and then it's like, okay, what happens next? And I think, to answer your second question, what happens next is we see issues with the Usos and Roman. So I don't think the Usos will win the titles back, and I think eventually they're going to turn face, and it's going to be Roman and Solo as the Bloodline with Paul Heyman, and Usos separate. And maybe we get Usos v Roman and Solo down the line, maybe. I agree that's definitely going to be the direction.
I agree that's definitely going to be the direction eventually. I just wonder if they're going to drag it out further by having the Usos win the titles back and drop them again. I don't know. I hope not.
That just feels like a messy...
Yeah, I agree. It's only the Saudi Arabia show that makes me think it could happen. But I agree with you. That should be the... And what I have liked is, obviously, since WrestleMania, Roman has been not siding with the Usos. Like, he didn't want to talk to them on the first SmackDown. And then even... one thing I really liked on this SmackDown was Paul Heyman was doing a promo, and the Usos were looking at Kevin and things, having a stare down. And Paul Heyman goes, and Roman is sick of you two. The Usos assume he's looking at Kevin and Sami, but he's actually looking at the Usos. I thought it was a clever little touch. And that is, for me, it's clear. And Solo as well. Like, anytime Roman needs help, it's Solo on his own now. But Usos aren't really there. So, for me, it is clear that's the direction they're going in. It's just whether they drag it out further. Personally, I don't think they should. And yeah, that's the interesting part of this story now, is when are the Usos going to get kicked out of the Bloodline, basically?
Yeah, it's got to happen. This seems to be the moment for me. Again, dragging this on and Usos winning the titles back just so they can defend them at the Saudi Arabia show feels like a real messy way around it. Like I just think that would be a bit too much. I definitely want the Usos to not win the titles, and I want to see them separate away from the bloodline. And I think the Usos could turn face. Although a face turn would feel a bit odd considering like how much they've been beaten down, KO and Sammy. But I guess like they're away from Roman's spell, so yeah.
I think if you make
would work.
The story can make sense completely if it's it's not rushed. It hasn't been rushed really. I mean, the whole thing's been playing out over. I mean, Jey Uso's story has been happening for like 2.5 years now since the bloodline started. Him being manipulated by Roman, that was the first feud they did, when there was no fans. So that's how long ago it was.
It is mad, really. Jey Uso's been on, Raw and SmackDown for the last few months, but been on weekly TV for 2.5 years solid, basically, Jey Uso. Him in particular, like Roman goes away for a bit, Jimmy was away for a bit, Solo was called up later. But Jey Uso's been consistently involved in like the top storyline for 2.5 years now. It's pretty incredible.
Yeah, exactly. Even Sami Zayn came into it last year. Like Jay's the one consistent. In the story.
He started this,
and that's why I think it's very easy to tell the story of him finally snapping, either him snapping and turning on Roman, or Roman kicking him out because he's had enough of the Usos. You can go either way with it. And it was the same with the Sami Zayn thing. Was Sami Zayn going to turn on Roman? Or was Roman going to turn on Sami? Ended up being Sami kind of turning on them by not hitting KO with a chair. But yeah, it's all good still. But I think there's a hotter storyline, or at least maybe two hotter feuds right now in WWE, which I didn't think would be the case. One of those, we might as well, as that's a good segue, we might as well talk about it now, is the LWO versus Judgment Day feud, which I think has really started to be a hot feud. And even without Ray being out there, Legado del Fantasma seem to have got over, which is great. Because
it is a big surprise, actually. It wasn't a direction I thought they would go in. I'm not too sure on the LWO name. That seems to be something they're sticking with. They get rid of Legado del Fantasma and calling them LWO.
I guess it's marketing because obviously it was a faction back in the day in the 90s.
Yeah, I know. It's just so they just it's a very small minor thing, but it's just I was just like, okay. But yeah, the feud is good. The only thing with it is Judgment Day just feel a lot stronger than Legado. Like in reality,
they're outnumbered as well.
Yeah, you can't compare Zelina to Rhea. You can't compare either Joaquin or Cruz to Damian Priest. You can maybe compare them to Dom, but even that, like even Finn and Escobar, comparing them, Finn's quite clearly the superior. So it's one of those feuds. But then I guess that's what you want. You want the babyface to be the underdogs, and
they have got one more member though, so that kind of evens it out.
And Ray. Yeah,
with Ray, if you add Ray into it, it evens it out, I think.
Yeah,
because they've got one more. They outnumber the babyfaces outnumber the heels, which is a weird dynamic. But the heels are a lot stronger than the babyfaces, so I don't mind it so much. I think we should get Rhea versus Zelina. I think that'd be a good title match to do. I think they've obviously interacted quite a lot. Zelina's looked really good in little things she's done with Rhea as well, and I think her having a little mini push is a good idea. I really like Zelina Vega. Priest and Santos Escobar had a match here, didn't they? Which was decent.
Yes.
But ended up with Priest hitting the South of Heaven choke slam and pinning Santos. This is another thing. Santos has lost quite a bit, which is a shame.
Yeah, they've not been well booked since coming up, Legado. And yeah, that I think that's the only thing that makes this feud not as good as I think it could be brilliant. It's just Legado don't feel to me that big time at the moment. But Ray is helping. And we've got Bad Bunny as well in the mix because he's appearing on Raw this week.
This is all going to come to a thing at Backlash. They're all going
we're going to get Ray and Bad Bunny.
We'll get to Raw, but we had like gang warfare at the end of Raw. It was pretty crazy.
Yeah.
So, there's a lot going on there with factions. And
I like big factions. Yeah.
We've criticised it in the past, particularly when AEW's done it, where like there's too many factions and everyone's in a faction. What I like here is there's a good distinction. There's people that are on their own, that are doing their own thing, and there are tag teams, and then there's factions. Like there's a good split, and I like that. I think it's a good mix at the moment.
Yeah, definitely. And with the draft coming up, I think it's important to me, if I'm doing the draft, I'm making sure you have the Bloodline and Judgment Day separate. I know they linked up on Raw, but you want one run in SmackDown, one run in Raw. And
the only problem with that is obviously Judgment Rhea has the SmackDown Women's title. So I don't think because Roman's not going to be on Raw and Raw only. There's no chance of that.
Yeah, but he's champion of Raw, isn't he? I mean, I think the draft's a good time to split things. Maybe this could be a good opportunity. We've said this so many times about when they can split titles, but like especially the tag titles, they've literally got a blue and red belt. Sammy and KO have him.
They should do it. Triple H should be like, look, but and under the new draft rules, we need champions on both brands, not together. I would be all for that, and then they can do a tournament culminating at Saudi Arabia, because it's called Night of Champions, right? So you can do a tournament that culminates in crowning a new champion. It all is perfect, really.
It is.
Obviously, you wouldn't have the Raw tag title defender, but you can do new SmackDown tag title. Say, assuming Kevin and Sammy take the Raw titles, you could easily do that. We'll talk about the draft. Maybe we should talk about the draft more at the end. Just a few picks of who we think should go where, NXT call-ups, that kind of thing. Just 5 minutes at the end to discuss people we think should move up.
Yeah, I mean, we got a return this week. Announced return of Shinsuke Nakamura.
Yeah.
What did you make of this? This was a bit flat for me.
Well,
I don't know about you.
It's built into a Karrion Kross feud. We've got a Kross promo afterwards.
Looks like it, yeah.
It could be a decent feud. The return itself wasn't much. He just squashed Madcap Moss. Looks like a joke.
He come back exactly the same.
And an armbar afterwards as well, for good measure.
Yeah, come back the exact same character against the most dull person on the roster. I was like, oh, this is his return.
Yeah. Okay. But if we didn't get the hint to the Kross feud, I think it would have been much worse, because it'd have been like, well, what's he doing? What's the direction? But at least we know the direction. I think Nakamura.
And also, quite good. Just with the draft to literally happen, and it's not this. Is it tonight or is it next Friday? The draft
next Friday. Yeah.
But with the draft happening like literally weeks, so could they not have held off on him debuting until the draft, maybe, and that'd be like a surprise?
Yeah, because I feel like maybe they're bringing back so many people in the draft and calling up people in the draft, though they didn't want to do too much in one go. Maybe that's why.
Yeah, it depends what else they got planned, I guess. Yeah.
I have heard rumours that instead, because they didn't do anything on Raw after Mania, because they were saving it for the draft. I think we'll get at least 2 or 3 NXT call-ups. I think we're going to get an injury return or two as well.
Makes complete sense.
I mean, on the draft, I don't know if you've seen the draft poster. There's quite a lot of people left off it, so there's no Bray Wyatt.
So I saw the advert, and I was looking at who was on the advert. It was all like the top guys. I was seeing if there's any like NXT guys.
So that's one notable person who's missing that's on it. So I'm thinking
that is it's about time he was back. Yeah.
But obviously, there's no Randy Orton, Big E, Bray Wyatt, Alexa Bliss, Aaliyah. There's a few that I don't know why I put Aaliyah in that conversation, but
I say Aaliyah's done well there to get in that mix.
But yeah, I read a list of it earlier. People that were missing. There's quite a few, but AJ Styles notably is one that's on it. So you can see them. That's probably why they brought Nakamura back now, because I think they'll have a few people returning. But this return was okay. One other match we did get. I'd like to know your thoughts on this one. Actually, is Xavier Woods versus LA Knight. Obviously Woods won with the backwards again, but used tights, which LA Knight tried to do. The ref didn't see it, and I never like it when it does that kind of when they do that kind of finish.
I think that. Oh, sorry, hang on.
And just generally, LA Knight losing again.
Yeah, I mean, that's just a personal thing. I just like LA Knight. I'd rather him not lose every week, but maybe it plays into his character a bit. I don't know. I think I'm kind of torn a bit. Like I really am happy Xavier Woods is getting a solo push. I know Kofi's and Big E are both injured, but they've both had their moment. I think this year should be the time Woods wins a major title. Now I know he's actually got a match tonight on SmackDown against Gunther for the IC title.
Yeah.
I don't think he's winning tonight, but
No,
he'll probably a good match. But so I'm happy for Xavier Woods, and I really think he should be pushed. But I'm at the same time I'm not happy with the New Day's portrayal. They've been like this for a while now, where they're baby faces that they've always been over the top, but like they do cheat a lot. Like Xavier Woods will play the trumpet to distract someone, or they'll do like I say, he'll hold the tights because LA Knight did it earlier, and it's just I'm not too keen on baby faces acting like that, and they've been like it for a while. It's just kind of how the New Day are, but I'm just not overly keen on that. I would like Woods to go proper serious and just go on like a big tear for a title. I don't know whether he goes to Raw in the draft, and
I think the New Day moving to Raw would be a smart decision, actually.
it goes for US title maybe against Theory.
And then you could have him beat Theory for the United States title. I think that'd be a good move. I think that'd be quite cool. Because he shouldn't be Gunther. Gunther needs to be, if Gunther loses, it needs to be a story, not just a random match on a SmackDown.
But what is good though is Woods has got a few wins now on SmackDown, so him getting a title match against Gunther feels like fair because he's got a few singles wins.
That's one good thing about Triple H's booking. Generally, there have been exceptions, but he does make people earn title matches and things. Like obviously maybe not much like the women's tag titles and things like that, but like the mid-card titles and the main titles, you seem to have some sort of qualification to get it, which is I do like. And the match itself is decent here, but I don't know about the result. I don't know where LA Knight goes from here. They could be building into his character, like you say. I mean, there's a lot of people saying he might win Money in the Bank. They do this a lot of Money in the Bank winners where they have them lose loads, but I don't know at the moment. It depends on what they do with the world titles as well. Because if LA Knight won the Money in the Bank and Roman was still champ, then there's no way he would beat Roman. But like if Cody wins the belt or they split the titles, then I think you could have anyone win the Money in the Bank and have them cash in.
Yeah, but no good. And also the other match on SmackDown, I think we kind of mentioned it briefly, maybe, but Solo Sikoa beating Riddle in the main event. Just in that feud, and then ended with Solo going mad and throwing the announce desk on Riddle.
This match was pretty good.
Savage.
Solo was just so pushed, like he beats absolutely everybody. My main criticism again of this feud is I think there's been too many matches. I think the segments and the promos are really good, but I just think we're repeating. I mean, this was the first time they've done Solo beat Riddle, to be fair, but they've done Solo beat KO like 3 times now. They've done.
Yeah, they have.
I mean, I'm just getting a little bit bored of them just doing the matches. But this was a good match, and this was Riddle's sort of in-ring return, so it was good to see him wrestle. It ended quite chaotically. It was fine. There wasn't a lot else to say about it, to be honest.
No, I just thought I'd mention it.
Got beat by the Spike. There was only really one other segment I remember from SmackDown, and that was Liv Morgan and Raquel coming out, and then interrupted by Sonya Deville and Chelsea Green, which led to a segment on Raw. It was bang average.
Yeah, so they've got their title match tonight as well, which it's just a title match for TV. It's nothing special. And the tag titles feel a bit all over the shop, a bit like, I guess Liv and Raquel are fine champions, but I'm just still confused why Ronda and Shane are in and around the picture.
Ronda apparently still hasn't been cleared to wrestle, which is why we got at WrestleMania. Literally, she did nothing. She come in and hit the armbar to win. That was it. They wanted her to be at WrestleMania, but she hasn't because she got injured. It was rumored she was missed WrestleMania. Then she made WrestleMania, but she hasn't been on TV since, and that's why. So I think Liv and Raquel will be, maybe tonight will be the night they come back. They must be near clearance, or they wouldn't have let her in the ring. But apparently she hasn't been officially cleared to have a match. So I think Liv and Raquel will be placeholder champions, really. They'll have a title for a month or two, maybe, and then Ronda and Shayna, I think, will win it from them. Yeah,
definitely. That seems to be the direction to go.
There's no other teams to beat, honestly. Like, they're not going to get beaten by Candice and Mia. They're not going to get beaten tonight by Chelsea and Sonya. And then Damage Control, I'm not even sure going to be a thing after the draft. But yeah, and there's no other tag teams. So yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Should we move on to Raw?
Yeah, Raw. And we've kind of spoke about it a bit already, but it's just a one-night alliance between the Bloodline and the Judgment Day.
Short-term
I
deal.
thought this was pretty cool. I thought they did it really well, and I liked how just the Bloodline at the start of the show, and then you hear Judgment Day's music, and I was like, wow, these are two factions we've not seen together, and I was like, oh, they're going to square off there, and then, but it kind of did square off.
Yeah, because Rhea was squaring off with Solo the whole time.
Yeah, Paul Heyman. I loved it how Paul was like, Jimmy, could you swap with Solo or Jay, whoever? And then he swapped, and then Rhea swapped.
Yeah.
I want to see a Rhea Solo match now.
I was very glad that he mentioned Finn Balor, because obviously Balor feuded with Roman and the Bloodline. And Paul Heyman did mention that. And I was like, if they just ignored that and Balor went out there and was like, fine, I would have been like, that's shit. But again, they don't ignore past storylines now, which is so much better. And Balor not being happy about it, but going with it because it suited it, then both parties made sense. And I liked Paul Heyman kind of acknowledging Priest at the start as well. I thought that might lead to a tease in the future. I could see Priest being a Paul Heyman type guy maybe at some point. I don't know. There just felt like there was something there, because he didn't shake the rest of the hand. He straight up to Priest and was like, it felt like they were the guys that made the deal. That's what it felt like.
Priest looked a bit cool here in his suit. He felt a bit more important.
Yeah, well, since Mania, he's felt much better than much more important. Because I my criticism of, obviously, all three of the others had singles matches at Mania. He wasn't on the card. He was involved because he was, but he was the only one that didn't have a match at Mania, which I thought made him look a bit shit, to be honest. But since WrestleMania, obviously with the Bad Bunny stuff, him chokeslamming Bad Bunny for the table, these promos, he seems much more important again, and I like that because I think Priest is great.
He is brilliant. And like I said, just a presentation. Everyone else dressed down, and he's just dressed in a suit. He just looked like
he looked like the leader here.
He did. Yeah,
I mean, Rhea's always looked like the main focus, which is fine. And then that leads to, obviously, they've made an agreement. They're going to take each other's enemies out. That leads to a match between Solo Sikoa and Rey Mysterio. Now, this was a match I was all for, because this is slightly different. This is like the two storylines into, and they had a really good match. And again, Solo wins. He just wins and wins. I mean, he's only been beaten once, and that was by Cody build up to Mania.
Yeah.
And that's how hard he's been pushed. They had a really good match here. The LWO come out to counter the Usos, and hit some of the Samoan Spike wins. And what I liked as well is, I've seen a clip on Twitter. I didn't notice at the time, but when Solo's pinning Ray, you can hear him say thank you to Ray for putting him over. I thought, which is just
really
nice. Yeah, it's just a nice touch.
And
I liked all of this. This whole first bit of Raw, I thought was really good.
It was, and the Samoan Spike is one of the most protected moves in wrestling right now. When he hits it, not only does someone stay down for a free count, they're basically dead. He just destroys people with the Samoan Spike.
I mean, wins him every match he's in, and even the matches he's not in, it helps Roman. Like, it beat Cody at WrestleMania, it beat Drew. I think,
exactly.
As well, Clash of the Castle. It's probably the most protected move in WWE at the moment, arguably.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the other thing I liked about this alignment was, obviously, they had a bit of stuff backstage as well. But then, obviously, the main event, you had the tag team match, Judgment Day v KO and Sammy. Or was it KO, Sammy, and Riddle, actually? And Judgment Day lost. So, the Bloodline are still the dominant faction because they held up their end of the bargain and Judgment Day didn't. So, these two big factions, but it's quite clear the Bloodline is still on top. And, Heyman can go back to Roman and say, well, we held up our end of the bargain.
Well, this is the thing, because there was a little bit where Paul said something like, we've held up our end of the bargain, you better hold up yours. I do feel like there's going to be tension between the Judgment Day and the Bloodline now, and that could lead to a future feud down the line. If they are, I think they'll both be on SmackDown because of Rhea being the SmackDown Women's Champion, and I think the Bloodline is staying on SmackDown. I just don't see them moving to Raw. I think they can do that feud down the line. Whether they're heel, I don't know, or they turn the Judgment Day face or something, I don't know. But I think that there could be something.
I reckon you can turn everyone apart from Dom face. I say you can't turn Dom face the way he is.
No,
like,
can't really,
I actually think Priest, Balor, Rhea are quite cool.
Rhea gets cheered anyway.
Yeah, Rhea basically. Well, she wrestled as a face at Mania, but
Pretty much, yeah.
You could turn the other three. I just think Dom is too far gone, and he's basically got the most heat in wrestling at the moment. Dom, it's incredible.
Definitely up there. So let's talk about that main event segment as a whole, because this might be my top mark of the week, really, because I love the ending. It's proper Attitude Era style faction war. All 4 factions essentially, all fighting. The Judgment Day, Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn, and Matt Riddle, LWO, and of course the Bloodline, all at it. In the ring, there's like 15 men in the ring or something like that. Mad, bro. Really good main event match to start with. As you'd expect, really. I particularly liked when Riddle and Zayn and Riddle and KO were not Riddle, Balor and Zayn, sorry, and Balor and KO were wrestling. It felt like 2016 NXT. Like it's just like, okay, this is great. Particularly like that stuff. In the end, obviously, a coup de grace, stunner, and a floating bro from the babyfaces to get the win. Judgment Day taking the, which is fine. And yeah, then just a big brawl to win over. That was my favorite. And I'm just intrigued as to where that goes next. Are they going to continue? I know basically you said one night. They just said short term, which made me think one night. But are they going to continue that? Are they going to now feud? Is this just going to be nothing after today? I don't know, but it's intriguing.
They should. This is one of those things. They shouldn't. I don't want to see something on Raw, immediate follow up. I want us to, like a month down the line, something to happen, and like Roman to just like destroy, like, I don't know, Damien or Finn or something, because he remembers what happened, and like he's like, yeah, you let us down. I want it to happen down the line. So I think they're both quite involved in other stuff at the moment. It's been a bit weird if they then got involved in a few.
Feuding with Kevin and Sami at the moment. So that's going to be the main focus at the moment.
Yeah, although Roman doesn't really have a challenger at the moment.
I'm intrigued as to who's his next challenger is going to be, because I've honestly got no idea.
No, and
next match is.
I know. I do think the draft might just start pushing people in certain directions. Brands at the moment are basically not there. And I know the title isn't brand relevant, but I just think, there's a lot of things I hope come from the draft. So I've got high hopes for the draft, and I hope it does start leading us to kind of get somewhere. It's actually a shame we haven't got war games around the corner, because with these 4 factions involved, you could just have some mental war games match.
All that was missing from the end of that segment was William Regal coming out at the end.
Yeah,
all that was missing, because it felt like the right moment for it. So we also had, let's talk about the women's division. Bianca Belair beat Dakota Kai in a standard match. We've seen these two wrestle a few times before. To set up, obviously, Io won the triple threat last week, become #1 contender. Dakota did get some offense in here, but in the end, Belair wins pretty comfortably. Not a lot else to it, but they are kind of, Bayley's reactions are the interesting part for me, because she just doesn't seem to get that Kai's getting beaten. She didn't really, I don't think she really wanted Io to get the title shot. They seem annoyed with Bayley getting most of the opportunities. I think they're either going to want someone's turning on someone, or they're just going to get drafted separately. One of those two things is happening soon.
Yeah, I think that. Yeah, right now it's actually intriguing, because I don't know. Say one of them or two of them are going to turn face, but I reckon right now I could see Bayley and Dakota staying heel and Io turning face, or I could see Io and Dakota turning face and Bayley staying heel, or like Bayley turn face maybe. And so I don't know. I think there's a few options.
Think that's maybe the one. I don't know. I would like Dakota and Io to stay together, purely because I don't think there's enough women's tag teams, and I think unless you're going to like push one of them to the moon, which you could easily do, especially with Io, then they're better off staying together as a duo. And then you could have Bailey separate as a face, and she would be absolutely fine, or a heel, whatever. But yeah, it's interesting. They're definitely teasing it, and I wonder if this match with Belair and Io is leading to something happening there. I think they're going to
happen on Raw, is it, or is it
don't
Backlash?
think it's been announced when it has happened. I assume it'll be Backlash because surely they're going to do one women's title match at least. Rhea doesn't seem to. I mean, Rhea might face Selena, but I don't think that'll happen at Backlash. It could, but I doubt it. So I think it makes sense for Io and Belair to be there. I would have thought, but I don't know.
Yeah, no, agreed.
And the other women's there's three actually, but the other big women's thing that happened was Trish Stratus coming down to the ring to cut a promo explaining her attack on Becky Lynch, and obviously we found out she attacked Lita too. What did you make of that?
Really good, and I think it was what I expected, also what I wanted from Trish, is to come out and just be like, I paved the way, and she basically I was one out like Lita, and she was like, Lita, you were feuding with Becky, a few months ago, and then how. So it was really good. I think, I think it's a really, yes, it's just a really good legend against the current top female star, just probably the top female legend, Trish. These
certainly
two
they have available to use.
Yeah, they'll wrestle in Saudi Arabia probably.
Yeah, I mean, I heard originally SummerSlam, but that feels far away. It does feel far. They'd have to drag it out a long way for that to happen. I mean, Becky obviously wasn't on Raw last week. I think might have a minor injury, so they might play it out until then. But yeah, I originally thought Saudi Arabia made sense because they normally do a big women's match, and Saudi Arabia normally as well is an attraction for the legends. They had Lita versus Becky there.
Yeah.
Last year, I want to say, was it?
Yeah, I think it was last year. It wasn't long ago.
Start of last year, I think. So yeah, Trish versus Becky there would make a lot of sense. But yeah, I'm not sure. But I really liked the promo. I liked the delivery. I thought it was good, and I like Trish being a heel. She's just
it works really well.
She just works being that bitch. And her versus Becky could be a really, really good storyline. Hopefully a good match as well, because I don't know what Trish is going to be able to be like in a one-on-one match in the ring. But I think Becky can carry almost anybody to a good match. So yeah, I think it'll be really interesting. I love, like I said before, they use men's legends a lot in wrestling. I don't think there's a good enough use of women in AEW and WWE generally. It hasn't. But WWE recently now bringing back Trish, Lita, Beth Phoenix has been involved a bit as well. Using women's legends better, and I like that.
No, definitely agree with that.
Anything else to say on that, or should I move on?
No, I think we can move on. The other women's segment was Chelsea and Sonya won.
I mean, it was obvious because they set this match up really on Friday. But then you got Chelsea and Sonya having a match against Candice and Michin. At least I'm glad they got a qualified, because again, you need a reason for them to go for the tag titles. They beat Candice LeRae and Michin here, and I thought they looked quite good, particularly Chelsea. She's lost a lot since she's come back. She's been used in that Karen comedy role. Here, she actually looked like a good wrestler, and won with the Unprettier, which is a good move to use as well. Yeah,
and the other thing from this match was Nikki Cross in the front row watching Candice. I mean,
where are they going?
Any idea what's happening here? I assumed it was going to be a Nikki Cross, Dexter Loomis thing. That's what I thought it was going to be.
I've been speculating a long time that they're going down the Sanity versus sort of Gargano's thing that they're going to do. But Sanity haven't appeared yet. And whether they will ever appear, I don't know. Apparently, I heard that Eric Young signed a contract about 4 months ago and hasn't been used. Because he's not doing anything else anywhere at the moment. But Killian Dane is still wrestling on.
Killian Dane. I was trying to give it. I remember Alexander Wolf, but I couldn't remember the other person.
I mean, what they could potentially do. I mean, I'm not bothered about Sanity coming back personally, but if they did bring them back, you could do Johnny Candice and Dexter versus Eric, Killian, and Nikki or something, or potentially Tommaso Ciampa in that when he comes back. But I don't know. I don't know where else it could be possibly going because they've been teasing it for months now and nothing's actually happened.
Yeah, it's actually something I thought they'd maybe forgotten about because I remember.
No, I thought it'd been dropped.
Yeah, I think they were just off TV for a while, but then it's just interesting that they brought it back up again here. Just interesting. I still I know she's champion right now, but I still think Indy Hartwell should be a definite call up for the draft. She won't be because she's champion, unless she loses spring break next week. They've got spring break next week, and she's defending her title in a triple threat match.
So she could lose it, or she could lose it the next pay-per-view, and they could call her up and have her on both shows for a bit. They've done that before.
So also that would mean Indy and Candice are a proper team, and then you've got Indy, Dexter, makes Dexter more relevant. I think it just improves it helps Dexter.
Indy thing. She won the title because of Dexter. I know. Yeah. That should lead to something. Otherwise, what's the point?
Yeah.
So I agree with you. But yeah, that match was okay, and like I say, I was at least pleased they got a tag match to give them the win. Couple of other segments to talk about. A really, really good the match of the week in WWE, for sure, was, I think, definitely Seth Rollins versus The Miz, which when they first announced this match on Twitter, I was like, why do we need this again? We got this twice before Mania in the build up to the Logan Paul match because of Miz's involvement. I was like, why do we? This match is going to go 5 minutes. Rollins will get the win. It really surprised me because they put on a really good banger. And Miz was great in this match. His little double DDT thing that he did was really good. And it was genuinely a great match, and I wasn't expecting it. So fair dues. I mean, Rollins always has great matches, but I didn't expect one here necessarily.
No, it was really good, and realistically, it's two people without too much direction at the moment. Just on a good match.
Do you think we're going to get another match with Logan Paul? It wouldn't surprise me.
Maybe. Although
he always seems to have 3 matches in his program.
Series,
He did it with Edge. He did it with Cody. He's that big feuds that he has. He seems to go 3 matches. So it wouldn't surprise me if they did this again, because Logan Paul in Saudi Arabia would make sense to me, and then maybe again at Money in the Bank. It wouldn't shock me.
Yeah, that would be fine. I think obviously I probably.
Or they both go in the Money in the Bank ladder match, which I could also see happening.
Yeah, I would just like to see Seth get back on that title train, pushing back.
I'd love to see him traded to SmackDown and face Roman soon, because he's got a victory over Roman. He beat Roman by DQ at the Royal Rumble last year.
Seth's a credible person that can beat Roman Reigns for the title.
Roman Reigns never beat Seth Rollins. They've got before Roman loses that title, he should 100% face Seth again.
Yeah, that would be a missed opportunity.
That should be the one where they tease this could happen, and then he doesn't, and then maybe Cody wins or whatever. It depends when. I mean, I have no idea. I'm not even going to guess when Roman's losing the title at this point.
I don't know if he ever is.
It could go to next year's WrestleMania. It really could. But yeah, random great match there. Rollins, Wembley. Crowd's so into it. I'm obviously really into Rollins, as they always are. Another big segment set up for the match at Backlash was Cody coming out, calling out Brock Lesnar, which is a crazy thing to do in itself when Brock's actually there. And then we didn't get Brock Lesnar. We got the Lesnar Taker come out. I've been waiting to make that joke because he was wearing the Undertaker's ring gear, basically. He was wearing a hat and a long cut. I was like, why does he look like the Undertaker? He's gone from Cowboy Brock to Undertaker Brock. He comes down and
this was a weird segment. I'm not, again, kind of similar to Xavier. I'm not too keen on your big baby face in the company just destroying people for no reason, just because he's a bit angry.
I don't mind them destroying security guards. I always think that's it's overdone, but I don't think it's necessarily a heel babyface divide thing. I think both can do it.
It makes me just a little less cheer for him a little less. I'm like, oh, I'm not. I was fully behind not so behind him because he's just needlessly attacked security guards. Like if they've done nothing wrong.
I would have preferred it if Brock wanted to fight Cody too, and they were both doing it to get.
Yeah, it's one thing if
standing there.
Yeah, like we saw it with Wardlow in AEW. He just beat security guards up for no reason. I was like, he's going to be a babyface. He's like, he was going against MJF.
I think because the crowd pops for it. I think.
Yeah, it's just such a. It's like if you actually think about it, it's such a weird thing for someone who you're trying to cheer to do. Just beat up random people for no reason. Just feels like that's a really weird thing. But yeah, no, it's fine. It's a good promo from Cody, as has been the case, since he's come back. And what is actually a bit weird that Brock just kind of stood there, laughed, and walked off, because the Brock Lesnar that we know just would come down and destroy his security guards and get to Cody.
That's what I think. I'd have preferred it if Brock wanted to get involved as well, and the security guards were holding both back, and because they were both furious, they would both.
Yeah.
That's what they normally do, pull apart brawl type thing.
Yeah, it's one thing if you're knocking security guards out of the way to get to someone, but Cody wasn't doing it. He was just beating them up for no reason.
And then Cody called him a coward because Brock didn't want to fight, which was weird.
Yeah.
However,
it would be a good match.
I am into this feud. I'm gonna. This match I think, is a great feud to do. It's just a shame it's not for the title. I think this would have been even better if it was for the title, but.
Yeah, Cody's first defense against Brock would be.
Yeah, you'd be like, he could potentially lose already. Like you would believe it could happen. But yeah, him versus Brock. Like, I genuinely don't know who's winning either, because they could have like Cody lose again and go on this like downward spiral where he's desperate, and then maybe he gets into the Money in the Bank match and wins that way, or something like that. Or he could beat Lesnar and be like, I've just beaten Brock Lesnar, like Roman. Let's do this, and then they go for it again. You could go either way with this, and Lesnar doesn't lose often, so it's obviously hard to predict as well for that reason. I have no idea what I'd go for, and that's why I'm into it. And I think Cody and Brock for the first time ever it's also a fresh match for Lesnar, which
it feels very fresh
because Lesnar doesn't have a lot of fresh matches left against top people. He could do him versus Akira Tozawa if he wanted, but it's not exactly interesting. Him against interesting people. So yeah, I really like the idea of this, and I'm surprised as well that Lesnar's doing it at Backlash. I thought for sure this would be a Saudi match or something, because Lesnar doesn't often work like immediately after Mania, but he is, so fair play.
No, it's
because it's a big show at Puerto Rico. It's not just a standard match in like, I don't know, Wisconsin or something in America, some random town. So fair enough. That was good.
We had another match on Raw that never finished, no contest, but Bobby Lashley, the Austin Theory.
This was a bit of a skidder for me in that sense.
Yeah, for like the 100th time.
What was going to happen? That Bronson Reed was interfering. This was the most obvious thing in the world. They've done Lashley and Theory like 7 times already as well for the US title. That feud.
Yeah, when I saw this match advertised, I was like,
Theory can't lose, because otherwise Lashley would have to go for the title again, and Lashley can't lose. Jesus, now. So why did you put this match? Why didn't you have Lashley face Dolph Ziggler or Mustafa Ali or someone like that? Elias, maybe. I know he's faced Elias recently. Someone who's not in the storyline, beat him, and then have Bronson Reed attack him afterwards. Why did you have to do this? It made no sense. And Theory, after a massive win at WrestleMania, has felt well flat since WrestleMania.
John
Cena's promo. Do you remember John Cena's promo? He said, "No, you'll beat me, and no one will care."
Yeah,
it's looking right at the moment, and it's not necessarily Theory's fault. It's because they haven't booked him to do anything since WrestleMania.
I know he needs a feud, and again, maybe the draft will lead someone over. I don't know, but someone maybe to feud with him. Well, I said about Xavier Woods. Maybe that is the. I don't really know, but he just needs to do something. And also, this whole segment was like, is it just 3 heels? Like Lashley was definitely a heel. He definitely turned back heel, and I think he's now face again. But
I think Lashley's a face, really.
Yeah, maybe, but it's just a weird one.
He's got a weird gimmick, because he did this promo thing where he was like, "I'm Mr. Nice Guy," and he's got this whole like Mr. Nice Guy. Obviously, like, he's not a nice guy. That's the whole point.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's got this weird gimmick. But I'm really glad that they're doing something significant with Bronson Reed because I think he's great.
He's really impressed me, actually.
I'm sure we'll probably get a match with Lashley at Backlash.
Yeah. He was one of the returns that I was not fussed about, really. I was like, oh, yeah, whatever. Like, I can give or take Bronson Reed. I've never been that fussed on him either way, never disliked him or liked him. But actually, his return, he's felt like a big deal. He's come across really well. He's been booked. I think he's won every match he's been in. He's been booked, well, apart from the draw with Lesnar.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's just been booked really well. And I think, yeah, I'm into Bronson Reed more than I've ever been into him. So I think they've done a good job with Bronson. And I actually think him against Lashley is actually a tough one to call, weirdly. Like Lashley, you'd think would win, but I think they're quite hot on Bronson at the moment.
Yeah, I think Lashley probably will win, but it's not. It's
probably
not set in stone. No, it's not like completely.
But
obvious.
also, he's tried to get the hurt lock in a few times, and he can't on Bronson because he's too big. So it's just like it's just a good. It's just a lot better than Omos, who Lashley was with before, and so yeah, it's good.
There wasn't much else on this one. There was a little segment with Chad Gable and Otis and stuff.
Oh yeah, fighting over.
Chad shooting each other. There wasn't.
I did enjoy the shoot.
Yeah, I mean, I love everything Chad Gable does, and
yeah,
I think Otis is doing a good job as well at the moment. There wasn't a lot else to it.
No, well, should we talk about the draft quickly?
Let's just do a few minutes on the draft and just talk about.
We're about a week away,
and a few people that we think desperately need a move.
Yeah, well, I will for one say Seth Rollins. I think him to SmackDown is completely logical. Who else from Raw would you move across? I think women's division. Asuka, maybe. Maybe
Asuka.
Women's division.
Maybe Becky if you're moving Seth as well. Obviously, he's put them on the same brand. They probably want to be on the same brand. Potentially. No, I was going to say Gable, but no. Unless you do the split between Gable and Otis.
This has been actually teased a lot in random promos. You've seen it with I think it might have been on this Raw, the Street Profits, and someone was Happy Corbin was like, "Oh, you two could be split up," and they were like, "Oh yeah."
Yeah, I actually think there might be the Street Profits.
Yeah, that would be an interesting one. But yeah, do you have any predictions on teams that you think will break up? Damage Control, I think we've both agreed on.
Potentially the Street Profits, potentially Alpha Academy. They're the only.
I think Alpha Academy. Yeah, I'm trying to think. Yeah, that's probably it.
Yeah. And in terms of moving over, I think Bobby Lashley actually would be a good shout to go to SmackDown because he hasn't really been on there. And I think Lashley v Roman hasn't really been done.
Well, actually, I just thought of an idea I had. I think you swap the mid-card titles. So you move Theory to SmackDown, you move Gunther to Raw.
Yeah, you could do that.
Especially if you move in Judgment Day to SmackDown. It makes SmackDown quite strong on the heel side. You move Gunther and Imperium to Raw, and you make the IC title on Raw.
And what about SmackDown to Raw? There's a couple of names. There's one name in particular that's really standing out to me. Well, we mentioned a New Day, but I think LA Knight would be beneficial having much more. That extra hour of TV with his promos and stuff would really help him. I think he'd get much more TV time. So I think LA Knight is a no-brainer. And again,
would you have LA Knight and The Miz on the same show?
Yeah. I'd do a feud between them 100%. They should have
that would be a great
feud. When The Miz was hosting Mania, they should have LA Knight come out, not Shane McMahon, and then do his quad or whatever he did. Do you know what I mean? Why? And also you could have him go for the United States title if they did stay on the same brand. You could have LA Knight be Theory as well. Because you could have LA Knight as a face if you wanted. It's not like
he could be either,
he's an obvious one for me.
The New Day we mentioned.
I wouldn't be surprised if Charlotte moved over because she's been on SmackDown for a long time.
I don't care where she is.
I think Drew McIntyre as a heel moving back to Raw.
As a heel, yeah. Because I thought about Drew. I was like, I don't know. Maybe you do split Drew and Sheamus up because they've just been interlinked for like so long now. Just
I
get
think you
them.
keep Sheamus going for the IC belt and he eventually wins it. And then you do Drew, turn him heel, and then when Cody wins the title, you can do Cody v Drew, who have history as a tag team from like 10 years, 15 years ago, maybe. I don't know how long ago it was, but it definitely had been a tag team before. And you can do Cody v Drew feud on Raw for the title.
Again, speaking of tag teams splitting, is it mad to move Xavier Woods away from Kofi and Big E? And you leave Kofi and Big E on SmackDown and you move Woods to Raw, or vice versa?
Depends how long Big E's going to be around for. Because I think you could do 2 and 1.
Depends on their injury, yeah. Because they did it with Big E in the last draft. They moved Big E to Raw and left New Day on SmackDown. Then they swapped him back mid-year, but
yeah, I can't think of anyone else at the top of my head right now, but that's about it for me. But in terms of NXT call-ups, there's a few in my mind that I think should definitely be drafted. The obvious one for me is Cameron Grimes, because he hasn't been on NXT in months. I think he's been preparing for it. I think Cameron Grimes, Baron Corbin feud with dumbass Corbin and like flashy Cameron Grimes writes itself. I mean, I have them as a tag team in my universe mode on WWE 2K22, but
I think you could put them as a team. Yeah,
I have them at 2K23, so not 22. But yeah, I think he's a no-brainer. I think Pretty Deadly are a good shout. Now they've lost the title.
Deadly, I think, are definitely coming up. I am like convinced they're coming up. Pretty Deadly, definitely. Cameron Grimes, I'm pretty convinced is coming up.
Tyler Bate,
just from what I see on TV. It depends on the title, and that means maybe Grayson Waller, because he's feuded with Bron Breakker. He's now feuding with Carmelo. I just feel like he has his own talk show, which I know they love, maybe on like Raw or something. I just feel like Grayson Waller is a definite call up for me as well.
Yeah, Waller or Breakker, one of them should. Like, you need one of those.
I would leave Breakker for a bit because he's just turned heel. I'd like to see him have a little heel run in NXT, maybe. Yeah, maybe. And Carmelo's now having a face run, so I think it's quite cool that they both stay down there as like the two figureheads of NXT for a bit.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, Waller's probably the big one.
In terms of women's division, it depends on that title match. I would definitely call up one of Tiffany Stratton or Indy Hartwell, depending who walks out as champ.
Yeah.
I mean, you could even do that for Roxanne.
Katana Chance and Kaden Carter to add to the women's tag division. I think they're absolutely no. They haven't been on TV much. They're not doing a lot.
Yeah, that is a no-brainer. Yeah,
they're an absolute no-brainer. They're ready for it, definitely. Trying to think who else on the women's side. It's hard to say because a lot of them I feel like have still got a lot to do in NXT. Like people like
Cora Jade, Zoe Stark.
Zoe Stark is one you could call up. I think she's main roster ready, and I don't think she's going to win the NXT title, women's title. I just don't think it's going to happen. I think she'd be a good mid-card heel to have on the main roster.
I mean, they could do something where they create a brand new team or brand new faction for the main roster, like they did with Dakota and Io. They just bring up Zoe Stark and, I don't know, Tiffany Stratton. That's probably not a good example of, but like they could just bring two people up and make them, put them together. Would be quite good.
Do you think there's anyone that could go the other way? We've seen a lot of people. We've seen Dijak, Apollo, Jinder. There's plenty more. All going back to NXT. Do you think anyone could get drafted to
NXT? Robert Roode is a no-brainer.
Maybe I've heard he's still injured, but
yeah, depending on his situation.
Yeah. For me, there's an obvious one.
I'll say again, I feel like I'm trying to move Xavier Woods anyway, but I think even Xavier Woods go to NXT and having a singles run in NXT wouldn't be a bad shout.
I think Madcap Moss would really benefit because he could work on his character and he could be a good upper tier. He's not going to do much on SmackDown and Raw, and he can take as a veteran for the women's division to like help them. I think that could be a good move. Yeah,
I definitely think the women's division could do with someone coming down. Whether that be, I don't know. I was just going to say Shotzi. I think Shotzi, like
and Emma she was one of the original NXT like breakouts,
Yeah.
along with like when Paige and just before the Horsewomen basically, but Paige and her were like the two main ones, and then Bailey and Charlotte and everyone came along.
Do we like drop down? She kind of skipped NXT.
Maybe.
Depends what.
I think she offers something different for the main roster. So
yeah, I do quite like her on the main roster actually.
there's not many obvious ones, but I think Emma and Madcap Moss together as a package would work.
I just wonder whether NXT might get someone big, like if say NXT got Madcap Moss and Robert Roode, that'd be really underwhelming as like NXT's gets. But like maybe they get. I think who's the biggest person they could get. I really think Xavier Woods would be like a quite noteworthy NXT addition.
Thing is, he's had a little NXT run with those tag titles. I just don't know.
Yeah, maybe I don't know. Maybe Tyler Breeze comes back and you have a Woods Tyler Breeze thing on NXT. I don't know.
Maybe. I mean, yeah, I think if anyone went to NXT, it would mainly people that aren't used on the main roster, because that seems to be the pattern with it.
So what I would have done, by the way, I would have held off on Nakamura and brought Nakamura back on NXT. That's what I would have done personally.
That would have been cool.
Then I'd be like, that'd have been a real big.
Nakamura versus Mello, like for the title, would be, like crazy. That would go mad for that.
Yeah, that's what I would have done.
Anyway, I can't really think of anything else, and unless you want to, I mean, like I say, Tyler Bate, I think is a no-brainer as well. I honestly think him on SmackDown with like.
Oh yeah, he should come up.
And all those guys. I also would love. I don't see this happening. I'd love to see grizzled young veterans away from Schism and called up, because obviously they requested their release a couple of weeks ago. Wasn't granted, and they wrestled a title match this week on NXT.
Yeah.
So, but they lost again, and I just feel like either release them or do something else with them. Don't keep releasing them.
You've just reminded me there. Speaking of NXT tag teams that didn't win the belts this week, the Creed brothers, they are main roster already. I mean, I don't think you call up Ivy Nile particularly. Maybe keep Ivy Nile down on her own, but the Creed brothers.
Maybe. Potentially.
I mean, do we know on Roderick Strong's position? Is he still with the company? I don't know.
I have no idea what he's doing. I was half expecting him to show up on Dynamite, I've got to be honest.
Because he could show up on Dynamite this week.
Because of the whole Adam Cole Chris Jericho feud, and he's kind of outnumbered. I'm half expecting him to show up there. I don't know if he can, but I'm half expecting it to happen at some point.
Is Kyle O'Reilly still on AW?
He is, but he's been injured.
So. Okay. So that's just a random segue. I just remembered. Kyle O'Reilly for a second. I forgot about him. Yeah, but whatever, Triple H has said it's going to change the game. That's just his catchphrase. But
yeah,
what I want from this draft is I want there to be clear directions on both brands. I want both brands to be different. I want, so let's say, I would personally have like Raw as the Bloodline brand, SmackDown as the Judgment Day brand, and Judgment Day and Seth or something on SmackDown, and Rhea headed up Women's Division, Bianca, maybe Montez as a single and the Bloodline on Raw, and you kind of separate the brands and you create two separate things and you separate some belts. Separating the main title will be basically impossible. Like Roman's not just going to give up one belt because that's like not in his character. Whereas KO and Sammy could just be like, oh yeah, you can have the SmackDown and Raw tag team title and let's say create a vacant belt. I would change the mid-card belts, definitely. That's one thing. It depends where you put Roman and the Bloodline, but I would just put Gunter away from Roman for a bit.
Yeah.
And maybe you keep Roman and stuff on SmackDown. You keep Seth on Raw, then you bring Gunter over. Have you ever Gunter Seth feud? Imagine that. That would be ridiculous.
It would.
And that is your top feud on Raw for the IC title, which is been built up quite a bit over the last year. Gunter is your top dominant champion. That's not a bad top feud for Raw. But
no, not at all.
I don't know. I mean, it's going to be interesting. I can't the draft is one of my favorite things.
I hope they present. I said this to Krusty last week, but I hope they present it in a different way as well. Because I think Stephanie McMahon, just reading out names, I mean, Stephanie's not even working for the company at the moment, but her just reading out names is quite cool.
So I'm not massive on like GM storylines too much, that they could be a bit overdone, but I think you do need two people trying to build different brands, because I think
like a competitive thing to it.
Yes, was it the Alpha Academy or something? We're talking to Pierce or whoever it was, talking to Adam Pierce. He was like, "Oh yeah, you need to build good brands for Raw and SmackDown." I was like, "Well, I don't want Pierce building both brands, because that just feels like, why does Pierce care who's on what brand, really? If he's
in charge,
yeah, if he's in charge of both, you need to make Pierce one GM, makes I don't know, whoever there's so many candidates for GM. Make Triple H on-screen GM. Why not? He's there anyway. He's been in the
William Regal would be perfect if they're allowed to use him, but apparently they're not. So
who?
William Regal.
Who did you say?
William Regal.
Oh, Regal. Yeah, he would be. Yeah,
he works there, but he's not allowed to be on screen at the moment. His contracts, they cut his contracts on AEW, so he can work there, but he can't be an on-screen character for God knows how long it is. Like a couple of years, I think it is. It's really long.
Yeah, that would be a shame.
That would have been perfect.
I also think you need a different GM. You can't just go back to like Teddy Long. I don't want any of that. Or like
something fresh would be good, obviously.
Mick Foley or someone. I can't think of who I would have. I don't know, but yeah, that's what I would want to see, is some proper GMs and a proper competition of who's going to get who, rather than just listed off names randomly.
Picks this person, and then the same person reading SmackDown picks this person. It was quite boring the way they do it.
And you see GMs interacting, being like, "Oh yeah, I got this guy, and it just adds something to it that it just makes everything a lot more interesting, I think.
Absolutely, definitely. Is that it for this week? I'd say.
Yeah, I think so. I think we've covered everything and a bit more.
Yeah, it was a good chat about the draft. It will be interesting. Yeah, so follow us on Twitter at Recharge Wrestle. We may tweet about the draft at some point. We might even do a special video and maybe do a mock draft or something. I don't know, but if we have any time to do that.
Yeah.
Subscribe on YouTube if you're listening on the podcast version. Find our YouTube channel at Recharge Wrestling, and give us a like on this video. It helps with this, algorithms as well. Subscribe, and we'll see you soon.
Cool. See you guys.
Goodbye.